Okay, young scholars. I'm going to get you started on the book. Occasionally, I will provide close readings in these little videos so that you can return to them when you need to for a quiz or something. Okay, so this is our PDF. Page numbers are not on it right now. We'll deal with that later. But there is a dedication from John Francis McCarthy. I'm sorry. That is the son of Cormac McCarthy. And Cormac McCarthy had a child late in life, and since he's in his 70s, this thing sort of functions as an allegory for the nature of his relationship as a father. All right, so our focus is going to be on moral choices, father and son relationships, and not so much on the bleak elements of things in the story, although it will be a little bit bleak. So I've highlighted in green actions, things that occur. In yellow, I've highlighted sometimes words, sometimes details that I want to talk about. And then there's going to be a third set of highlighting for dialogue because, well, you'll see when we get there. All right, so, and I do that because here we start with the actual action, and here is a dream. And I'm going to ask you a question about the dream later, but I'll start reading it. We'll get a sense of the pace and the tone and what it's about and how he writes. When he woke in the woods in the dark and the cold of the night, he'd reached out to touch the child sleeping beside him. Nights dark beyond darkness and the days more gray, each one than what had gone before, like the onset of some cold glaucoma dimming away the world. He'll use words strangely like this. Glaucoma is an eye disease where things fade to gray. Right, so that one's not that strange of a choice. His hand rose and fell. I should have made this one green because this is the action. His hand rose and fell softly with each precious breath. He brushed away the plastic tarpaulin. It's like a plastic cover you would use outdoors, and raised himself in the stinking robes and blankets and looked toward the east for any light, but there was none. In the dream from which he'd awakened, he had wandered in a cave where the child led him by the hand, in their light playing over the wet flowstone walls. Like pilgrims in a fable, swallowed up and lost among the inward parts of some granitic beast. So a granitic beast is one that is made of granite. Okay, this should be highlighted in yellow because we're in a dream now. So he is in a cave, and they're like pilgrims. They're not actually pilgrims. And across this pond in the cave, he's seeing the light play over the wet stone. Deep stone flues where the water dripped and sang, tolling in the silence, the minutes of the earth and the hours and the days of it and the years without cease. This is one of his little poetic interruptions. We're still in the dream, we're still in the cave, but this is what's going on in the man's life. Tolling is sort of counting in silence the minutes of the earth and the hours and the days of it and the years without cease, this endless, ongoing time that they're in. Until they stood, now we're back to the action in the dream, the boy and the man, until they stood in a great stone room where lay a black and ancient lake, and on the far shore a creature that raised its dripping mouth from the rimstone pool and stared into the light with eyes dead white and sightless as the eggs of spiders. So there's some creature, they walk into this other part of the cave, and there's a lake, and across from them is this creature with just white, dead eyes. It swung its head low over the water as if to take the scent of what it could not see. So he's trying to sniff. He smells the man and boy, but he's blind. Crouching there, pale and naked and translucent, its alabaster bones cast up in shadow on the rocks behind it. So alabaster is like a whitish gray stone. Translucent means you can kind of see through his skin a little bit, not transparent, but light can get through. All right, its bowels, its beating heart. Now this is a fragment. It is not a full sentence, but he can do this because it's a piece of fiction, and he'll do it a lot. That's describing the creature across the lake, which is still part of a dream, just to remind you. Okay. The brain that pulsed in a dull glass bell. So you could see like its translucent, pale, sightless eggs of eyes, and you can see its guts and its brain inside. It swung its head from side to side and then gave out a low moan and turned and lurched away and loped soundlessly into the dark. Okay, so it just sniffs them after taking a drink and lopes off, which is a slow way of just kind of walking away. Now we're back to the action. With the first gray light, he rose and left the boy sleeping. All right, so this starts with when he woke in the woods. All right, and then some poetry about the situation they're in, and then the dream. And now we're continuing that action. With the first gray light, he rose and left the boy sleeping and walked out to the road and squatted and studied the country to the south, barren, silent, godless. Another one of his fragments. Barren means empty, it's silent, and then godless, which is not something you can really observe. He thought the month was October, but he wasn't sure. He hadn't checked the calendar for years. They were moving south. There'd be no surviving another winter here. All right. When it was light enough, okay, back to the action. When it was light enough to use binoculars, he glassed the valley below. So he just used them to look. Everything paling away into the murk, the soft ash blowing in loose swirls over the blacktop. He studied what he could see, the segments of the road down there among the dead trees, looking for anything of color, any movement, any trace of standing smoke. He lowered the glasses, okay, this is the action again, and pulled down the cotton mask from his face and wiped his nose on the back of his wrist and then glassed the country again. Then he just sat there holding the binoculars and watching the ashen daylight congeal over the land. Congeal is like when something kind of slowly comes together. He knew the child was his warrant. He said, if he is not the word of God, God never spoke. So there's some religious sensibility here. If you've ever read the Bible or had it read to you or seen an excerpt, you may notice the style here is similar to that, very dramatic. The child is his warrant means the child is his responsibility. It's his main thing. It's his purpose. And he actually says, if he, meaning the boy, is not the word of God, God never spoke. In the Bible, in the beginning, God, in the beginning was the word. So he's reflecting here the idea. And again, this is almost like an end, after, if the Bible begins with God speaking and then creating everything, this is the destruction afterward. Okay. And he's saying here, if the child, his son, is not given to him by God, then God never spoke. It's poetic. I don't have an exacting interpretation for you. All right, so green again is our action. When he got back, the boy was still asleep. He pulled the blue plastic tarp off of him and folded it and carried it out to the grocery cart and packed it and came back with their plates and some cornmeal cakes in a plastic bag and a plastic bottle of syrup. He spread the small tarp they used for a table on the ground and laid everything out and took the pistol from his belt and laid it on the cloth and then just sat watching the boy. All right, so just casually mentions that they have a pistol. He pulled away his mask in the night and it was buried somewhere in the blankets. He watched the boy and he looked out through the trees toward the road. This was not a safe place. They could be seen from the road. Now it was day. The boy turned in the blankets. He opened his eyes. Hi, Papa, he said. I'm right here. I know. So I colored this because although he does do the proper indentations this time, he doesn't say who it is. And sometimes with longer conversations, you might lose track of who's saying what. Obviously, he says, hi, Papa, so we know it's the boy. The man responds. We know that because there's a new indentation. All right. And then the father says, I know. The boy says, I know. So you can lose track of that in longer conversations. All right. And sometimes it'll be blended right in with the paragraph, which is not the way you're supposed to do it, but he does that for his effect. You can do it like that sometimes, but he doesn't give quotation marks. He doesn't necessarily say who's saying it. Right, so I'll just read a little bit more. An hour later, they were on the road. He pushed the cart, and both he and the boy carried knapsacks. In the knapsacks were essential things, in case they had to abandon the cart and make a run for it. So there is already a lot of hints that they're in a dangerous world. It's not a safe place, and they could be seen from the road. They have a pistol. They're ready at any time to abandon the shopping cart that they have. Clamped to the handle of the cart was a chrome motorcycle mirror that he used to watch the road behind him. He shifted the pack higher on his shoulders and looked over the wasted country. The road was empty. Below the little valley was a gray serpentine of a river. This is a snake-like shape, motionless and precise. Along the shore, a burden of dead reeds. Are you okay? He said. The boy nodded. Then they set out along the blacktop in the gunmetal light, shuffling through the ash, each the other's world entire. Okay, this style you might call lyrical. Like I said, you would normally say, this is syntax here, each one was the entire world of the other one, right? Meaning this is all that they have. All right, but he's using this language, again, that reflects the religious elements here. Not that this is a Christian text or anything, but there is some element here of a sense of grandeur that you would have. If you think of the Bible as describing the first people, the first crime, the first of everything, this is sort of reflecting the last of everything, seemingly the last two people, the last father and son. All right, and then we continue with the action. They crossed the river by an old concrete bridge. A few miles on, they came upon a roadside gas station. They stood in the road and studied it. I think we should check it out, the man said. Take a look. All right, and this is where I'm going to stop and let you read. I just want you can feel free to highlight your version of it to keep track of these things. So sometimes down here, the child will speak. You can read me a story, the boy said. Can't you, Papa? Yes, he said, I can. It'll usually say, I said. But as we go through, sometimes it'll just be like this. It's raining. Yes, the man said. I know. So he's not using the rules of punctuation and grammar. Can I see, the boy said. Yes, of course you can. Of course you can. All right, and then the boy leaned to whatever. What do you see, the man said. Nothing. So you have to just be aware, and you're going to pick up the rhythm of what they sound like as you're going along. Now you're going to read on to page 9, which I have marked on here, and I'm waiting for the mark. Hopefully it's there, right? So it says day 1, and then there's a 9 that I can't put into the screen here. All right, so that's where you'll stop, and there are questions online.